The Taoiseach discusses Northern peace process with Vice President Gore at the White House. At home and abroad, thousands take part in St. Patrick's Day celebrations. And environmentalists win the battle to stop nuclear waste dump at Sellafield. A very good evening to you. The Taoiseach has said in Washington there's a united approach between the three governments in dealing with the Northern Ireland peace process. Following a St. Patrick's Day meeting at the White House, Vice President Al Gore repeated his government's position that if the IRA declares a ceasefire, Sinn Féin should be invited to participate in the Northern talks.
The Taoiseach told Vice President Gore he had come to Washington to seek the help of the US administration and Irish America for the reconstitution of a really honest peace process.
The logic of peace means being confident enough to give up the military mindset, to give up the sense of security that comes from controlling a neighbourhood through intimidation, and being ready to give up the delusion that peace can ever be compatible with the retention of Kalashnikovs and Semtex.
Al Gore confirmed to journalists at the White House that George Mitchell will, as he said, bang the gavel when the talks resume. And he said all three governments agreed the talks stand the best chance of success if all parties are at the table.
But violence can have no voice in this process. In order for the talks to be inclusive, the IRA must declare and implement an unequivocal ceasefire. If they do, I believe that Sinn Féin will be invited to participate in the talks.
The Taoiseach also used today's meeting to seek support for President Robinson's candidacy for the UN human rights position. But the North dominated the discussion, so was the Taoiseach happy with the level of support he received from the Vice President?
I got a very strong message from Vice President Gore of support on behalf of the entire administration for strong resumption of the talks on the 3rd of June and making sure that when the talks resume we really do make progress on the substantive items on the agenda.
And is he happy that three governments are agreed on their approach?
I am. I think that there's this, from my discussions with the British Prime Minister and now with the Vice President, it's clear that each one of us want to inject a heightened degree of urgency into the talks on the 3rd of June. Once the Westminster election is over, the conditions will be right for forward movement.
And the Catholic Primate Archbishop Sean Brady has called on the IRA to restore its ceasefire in a way which could lead to all-party negotiations involving Sinn Féin. Speaking at a St. Patrick's Day Mass in Armagh, Dr. Brady also hoped that agreement could be reached on controversial marches in the north this summer.
It was a low-key celebration in Armagh this year, as parade organisers had not received Peace Fund money because of a question mark over its cross-community content. But Scouts and Guides paraded to the Catholic Cathedral. Dr. Sean Brady was celebrating his first such Mass since he became Archbishop of Armagh last year. In extending St. Patrick's Day greetings, Dr. Brady spoke of the patron saint as a model for reconciliation. He hoped there could be compromise over contentious parades this summer. The Archbishop also called for a renewal of the IRA ceasefire.
There's no point in looking back to the past. The thing is to address the present and with a view to preparing the future, and that is to call for a ceasefire, and first a cessation of violence, but a ceasefire which would lead to and assure a place at the negotiating table for all parties, and that would include Sinn Féin.
Meanwhile, at a service in Downpatrick, a senior Protestant clergyman has warned against any repetition of a Drumcree-style standoff this summer. The Dean of Down, Very Reverend John Dinnan, said he hoped that the Church of Ireland would not be drawn irreversibly into what he said was a new and sinister source of division in the community, namely the civil disorder which had followed some church services, a reference to the annual Portadown parade.
In London, John Major has announced that the British